Hey Civ fans, James here and welcome back to my channel. This of course is part 3 of my Civ 6 Beginner's Tutorial series. If you're new to the game and haven't seen the first 2 parts, I definitely recommend checking them out first. This time around, I wanted to give you guys some tips on how to manage the outside forces of the game. That includes city-states, AI civilizations, the keys to war, as well as religion. And as with the previous videos, I'm assuming that players are new and might not have the expansions or DLC, so I won't be going too much into expansion mechanics. Also, my focus will be more around helping you understand the game mechanics and decision making, rather than trying to tell you what are the best things to build. So without further ado, let's dive into the video. Topic number 1. City-states. First, I want to talk about city-states. City-states are the neutral third parties you'll run into on the map. They look to live simple lives, defending their lands and helping to contribute to their major civ overlord, known in the game as a suzerain. With the various bonuses they can give in the game, they can be very influential, and more than just an annoying city holding lands that you covet. Of course, you can always take out city-states through war, and sometimes it's actually a good idea, but this can also lead to other civs being angry with you. For the purposes of this section, I'll discuss the keys to controlling city-states through diplomacy. So how do you gain favor with a city-state? This, of course, is through the envoy system. At a basic level, every city-state will give you bonuses at 1 envoy, 3 envoys, and 6 envoys. These bonuses are consistent based on the type of city-state that is, with the types being cultural, industrial, militaristic, religious, scientific, trade, and maritime. Once you get to 3 envoys with a city-state, you become eligible to be the city-state's suzerain, assuming you have the most envoys at the city compared to your rivals. Being suzerain grants you access to the city-state's unique bonuses, and these are often very powerful. For example, some of these bonuses will allow you to build special tile improvements, while others give you boosts to your resource yields. There are a variety of useful bonuses, and assessing which city-states are important for your game is key. Additionally, being the suzerain allows you to levy the military of the city-state, paying to borrow their army for a limited number of turns. This can be useful if you're attacked, or if you wanted to pull off a quick rush on an enemy. You can also gain vision of whatever the city-state sees, and you get access to strategic and luxury bonuses of the city-state as well, without needing to trade with them. So now you're probably asking, how do you earn envoys? And you can do this in a variety of ways. First, if you're the first major civilization to meet the city-state, you automatically get 1 envoy there. In addition, there are civics, wonders, and other things you can build which also grant envoys. Additionally, city-states will often give you quests to complete, which you can identify by hovering over the exclamation bubble by the city-state's name. Completing a quest grants you 1 envoy at that city-state. Finally, you have influence points. Every turn, you develop influence points which go towards generating an envoy, which you then can assign to the city-state of your choice. The amount of influence points per turn you get will depend on the level of your government, and there are also policy cards which can help boost this. Gaining an understanding of the types of city-states out there, as well as the powerful bonuses they offer, can help your decision making. Other things I consider when determining how to approach a city-state is, how hard are rivals investing envoys in the city-state? How close are they to my empire, and are they in key areas which I would want to control? Topic number 2. How to game the AI diplomacy. To put it bluntly, the AI in this game is dumb. Like, really dumb. With their agendas, it's pretty common to get trash-talked by an AI. They offer you ridiculous trades, often demanding you give them gold for free. They always want your great works in exchange for chump change, and the list of grievances goes on. Something I've definitely noticed playing with my friends is a lot of new players seem to struggle with keeping an AI friendly with them. Strangely enough for me, I generally am able to play relatively peaceful games, so I want to share some tips on how I game the AI and manage to keep other civs happy with me. So first, you need to realize, sometimes the AI just plain won't like you. Especially if your capitals are close, the chances are you're going to butt heads with them. What I've found though is that first impressions mean everything. When you first meet a civ, first think about, do I actually want to be friendly with these guys? How far are they from me? If you want to try and be allied, I would generally respond to the first prompt, complying to whatever they want, whether it be exchanging information on capitals, accepting someone into your city, or sending someone to their city. Of course, be careful when you decide to do this. If you let the wrong civ see your location, it may end up working against you. So depending on the civ and their first impressions of you, they may decide to send an envoy to you, usually within the first few turns of meeting you. If you receive an envoy, I always accept and send an offer right back. I think that turn or the turn right after are generally the best times to send them an envoy back, as their impression of you will hopefully still be at its highest. If they accept, then I think for the most part you're looking good. Of course, you can also be proactive and send an envoy first, but your mileage with that may vary. Next, try sending trade routes and offering some luxury for luxury trades. It might not always be in your best interest, but giving gifts and trades in their favor will also boost their impression of you. If you manage to establish this trade, you might be ready for the next step. Friendship. Once you become friends, it can be very easy to develop into an alliance, and from there, they usually won't betray you. With all that being said, sometimes the AI is just playing with you and will show you a friendly face but then declare war on you a couple turns later. In order to help with this, I think we need to look to our friend Teddy Roosevelt, who famously said, "Speak softly and carry a big stick." The biggest deterrent to war is always going to be having a strong army. Make sure you aren't too behind in military power with your nearest enemies. Being powerful in general also makes the AI more likely to respect and like you. In other words, love yourself, and others might start to love you as well. Sometimes though, diplomacy fails, and
war were declared.
And this brings us to our third topic, war. How to defend and attack. Now this topic is pretty extensive and honestly could be a video of its own, but I want to give some tips on assessing wars and making the right decisions. When it comes to war in most strategy games, the general rule of thumb is that defending is easier than attacking. This is because the distance that reinforcements need to travel is longer for an attacker. So if you get war declared on you, generally you should just play defensive. Dragging it out will naturally move the advantage in your favor. Range units are going to be key here, but make sure to have some melee units to protect your backline. Be sure to try and get walls too, as walls are a free attack on enemies and protect your city from getting taken out too quickly. If you're on the offensive, I would say definitely be careful with this decision. The decision to attack and go to war is not one to take lightly, as spending time making units and warring is time spent not improving your cities. There are a number of things to consider. How far is the enemy? Do I have enough military advantage to overcome the reinforcement advantage? Does the enemy have walls? What is the terrain like? What is the science advantage and timing in the game? Generally, I would recommend if you do want to go to war, try and do it early before the enemy gets walls. Walls make a huge difference early on until siege weaponry improves. Once walls are up, I personally try not to go to war too often, as siege weaponry, while effective, often requires you to have a decent amount of units that soak up damage. Otherwise, when you start getting artillery, and especially once planes are created, war becomes a very different animal, and it becomes significantly easier to take cities. One of the hardest parts of the game to learn at first is how to properly take cities. For one thing, make sure you have the right composition of units to invade. You'll want a healthy mix of units to be able to properly space and control the board, and attack the city. Not only that, you might want to make units to counter their unit composition, as certain unit types have advantages over certain other ones. Next, it is important to consider the route your army will take. Check the terrain and layout of their empire. Are there any choke points which will be hard to break? For example, do you have to go through any mountain passes or a number of hills? Depending on the city layout, along with any encampment districts the enemy might have, it could make it a pain for you to move and attack through their territory, and your units will likely take a lot of free damage. Also be sure to consider, where will their reinforcements come from, and where will my reinforcements come from? Ideally, you want to be able to cut off their potential reinforcements before they can engage your units at the city. Once you decide the best way to approach, next, you march. I usually prioritize trying to eliminate as much of their ground army as possible, while also slowly marching towards their cities. Try your best to get a complete surround around the city, as attacking it from different angles will maximize the damage you can do it in one turn. Be sure to be aware of the terrain around the city, as it may affect whether your ranged units can hit from certain points, as well as the route you would need to take in case you need to retreat any units. An important concept to note in civilization warfare is called zone of control. You probably have noticed when you click on some units, you'll see squares with red exclamation marks. These are zones of control. Melee units exert zone of control to all adjacent tiles where they're standing, with some exceptions depending on the terrain. For example, you can't exert zone of control across a river. These zones basically make it so you cannot enter the zone and exit in the same turn, so either you stop in front of the enemy or you attack. Using zone of control is important to restricting enemy movement and also sieging cities. In order to siege a city, you need to make sure that you have zone of control entirely around the city. Terrain and enemy units can affect the siege status, so learning to place units in the right places is important. Placing a city under siege makes it so that the city will not heal between turns, making it significantly easier to attack, especially early on. Depending on the units you have, you will generally want to focus on taking out the city's walls before sending in melee units to finish it off. I generally camp melee units around to siege the city, while chipping away at the walls with ranged and siege units. However, certain units such as the siege tower will allow melee units to attack the city's health directly, rather than the walls. The city will try to fight back, and often you'll have a unit who is close to dying. In those cases, you need to make a decision. If you're okay with the unit dying, maybe consider letting it be bait. If you can though, I would try to retreat the unit outside of enemy range to allow them to heal back up, and become reinforcements later on. Sometimes though, you don't even need to do a full retreat. For example, one tactic you can do is save a unit upgrade, and use them as a heal to extend the life of your unit. Additionally, you can pillage. Pillaging can be done if your enemy cities have tile improvements, districts, or trade routes nearby. Placing a unit on the item allows you to pillage them, but keep in mind that it takes movement points to perform the pillage action itself, so in the case of trade routes, you might want to place the unit on the spot where you think the trade route will be. Pillaging different improvements and districts will provide you with different yields, which can help you keep up on resources while you're waging war. Improvements in particular you'll want to look out for are farms, as they provide 50 health to the pillaging unit. This makes it so you don't necessarily need to retreat your units too far back to receive a heal. Other tiles will give you science, culture, faith, gold, as well as other bonuses. Another useful tip to know is that having a unit on a space prevents that city from working that space, so if you're afraid of reinforcements, you can camp units on high production tiles to keep them from being able to churn out any reinforcements. Ultimately, taking out other civs comes with practice, so keep on warring, you warmonger you. Topic number 4, religion. So this next topic is a doozy as well. That is, of course, religion. The core of religion is the faith resource, which you can think of as another currency, kind of like gold. It allows you to purchase different faith units and buildings. The first step to a religion is a pantheon. You need 25 faith to be able to unlock a pantheon. Most pantheon beliefs are small bonuses, often based on terrain and improvements in your empire. When selecting a pantheon, you have a lot of options depending on what you want to use your religion for and what the land around you is like. Generally, I think a safe pick is a pantheon which provides you with additional faith, but don't be afraid to explore the different options. Next, you need a great prophet, which you can get from creating Stonehenge or accumulating enough great prophet points, which come from holy sites and policy cards. Once you recruit a prophet, you can establish your religion. At first, you'll get 2 beliefs, a founder belief which only applies to you, and a follower belief which applies to anyone who follows the religion. When selecting these first beliefs, a general rule of thumb is that beliefs which provide you key resources, such as production or the appropriate yield for your victory type, are usually solid. I think you also can't go wrong with beliefs which grant you additional faith. Some good ones the AI tend to always take early are the special faith buildings, which I think are relatively useful. There are also a number of other very useful beliefs which you'll have to experiment and learn about. At first, you'll need a shrine to make missionaries, who are the basic tool for you to spread your word. Next, once you get a temple, you'll be able to build apostles. Apostles are mega missionaries. They receive a free promotion which gives them some pretty crazy abilities. Additionally, they have more spreads, stronger religious strength, and have 2 special abilities you can trigger. The first is evangelizing your belief. You can do this twice after establishing your religion initially. This basically lets you go back and select a worship belief, which applies to anyone following your religion. Next is an enhancer belief, which applies specifically for you. Here the rules are generally the same as what I stated before. Anything which helps generate more faith is a safe bet, with some other very useful beliefs being available as well. Definitely try out different ones and see what you like. Then you have the apostle ability, Launch Inquisition. This consumes the apostle and starts an inquisition, allowing you to build inquisitors who can condemn heretics from your lands. Inquisitors will also deter enemies, especially AI, from trying to spread religion in your lands. However, be careful when making this or any religious unit, as if the city you purchased the unit from was converted to another religion, you may have accidentally created an inquisitor for the enemy. In order to spread religion, you'll need to do a couple of things. 1, you need to exert religious pressure, which is pressure exerted on other nearby cities based on the number of followers in a city. Having large cities with a lot of followers will help boost this pressure. Not only that, sending trade routes to other cities will also give small boosts to this pressure as well. Then, you also need to conduct religious warfare. You can move missionaries and apostles to enemy cities and convert their people to the true word. Additionally, apostles and inquisitors can engage in theological combat. These religious units can attack each other, and depending on the result, surrounding areas might gain or lose religious influence. The combat works similar to normal unit combat, except the power can vary depending on the religious pressure in the area and your relationship with the civ you're trying to convert. If you ever need to heal your units, you can also create a guru who heals all religious units in a circle around them. Learning the right beliefs to select and managing your mission army are the keys to a strong religious takeover. It's also very important to develop a plan in how you want to take over, and you'll want to note which civs have religions and which do not. Another tip around religion: if you ever find yourself close to losing to someone over a religion, war is sometimes necessary. War allows your military units to condemn heretics, killing any apostles and missionaries in one click, rather than having to go through religious combat. This tactic is also why it's incredibly difficult to win religious victories in multiplayer games. While faith is obviously core to religious victories, faith can also be spent on other things. For example, you can spend gold or faith in order to purchase great people. This can be useful if you see someone who's ahead of you in trying to obtain a pivotal great person, and it'll probably make them pretty sad if they find out you did that. You can also buy naturalists with faith, and potentially civilian and military units if you obtain the appropriate upgrades for it. With the expansions, you can also purchase rock bands with faith, who can be huge for cultural victories. Religion is incredibly powerful in this game, even when you're not going for religious victories. Try out the different religious beliefs and see what style of play you prefer. And there you have it, folks. Even more tips to improve your Civ 6 game. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching this video. Please do consider giving it a like and subscribing, as it really helps my channel grow. If you have any questions or any topics you want me to cover in future videos, please feel free to comment below and I'll try my best to help out. Civ as a franchise is always so great, and I'm more than happy to be able to teach people the basics to the game, as well as the history behind the game. Hopefully you learned something new today, and please do let me know in the comments if I was able to help you. Thank you again for watching, and as usual, hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.